Back in 2018, I wrote a book for my kids. Now, I'd never written a book before, let alone a children's book, but I wanted to start a conversation. I'm the proud father of 6. It's sort of like a Brady Bunch situation, so I've got 2 black biological kids and 4 white stepkids. And that conversation I wanted to start with them was about racism. Now, this was before debates about critical race theory being taught in classrooms, George Floyd's murder, or the protests from the summer of 2020. But let's be honest, racism isn't new. And I couldn't think of a more important conversation to start with my kids, who are growing up in the whitest big city in America, my hometown, Portland, Oregon. So I spent a week writing it and another week designing it. And then I came up with what I thought was the most clever children's book title ever for a kid's book on racism. A kid's book about racism. Now, I only printed 1 copy because I had no idea what I would do with 2. And this little 8x10 book was meant to explain my experience with racism to my kids. What it felt like, how to know when it popped up in a situation. Now, being a father has been one of the greatest joys of my life. And starting meaningful conversations with my kids hasn't only felt important, but crucial. I didn't grow up with a dad. Dad would leave by the time I was 4. I'd only see him a handful of times before I was 18. So Mom would raise us by herself. She worked nights as a nurse. She spent her days driving us to school, soccer practices. I have no idea when she slept. So there wasn't much time to talk about much. Not about my parents' separation and eventual divorce. Not about relationships or navigating the world as a little black boy. Not about anxiety or loneliness. And not about sex or drugs or rock and roll. I remember wishing some grown-up would come and explain the world to me. Where'd the dinosaurs go? Why do we sleep? How come I get sad sometimes and I don't know why? I wanted to understand myself better. I wanted to understand my world better. To be honest, I needed someone to talk to. But it turns out what I experienced wasn't the exception, it was the rule. But I wasn't the only kid running around whose parents didn't know how to talk to him. And now, I'm a part of a generation of millennial parents who, because our kids and our parents didn't know how to talk to us, we don't know how to talk to the kids in our lives. Sesame Workshop actually conducted a study back in 2019. They wanted to figure out just how much grown-ups were talking with the kids in their lives. They called it the Identity Matters Study. So researchers wanted to talk with parents and teachers around how often they talked about race, gender, class, religion, country of origin, family makeup, and how often they did it. It turns out for teachers, they rarely discuss topics around social identity with their students, even though they overwhelmingly believe that it has a material impact on their lives. They cite a lack of training. And for parents, they found that they actually expressed a high level of comfort talking about these topics, but in practice, rarely do. That may be because in that same study, 80% of parents said they do not believe their child has ever faced a negative comment because of their social identity. So the survey says, grown-ups, we're not really talking with the kids in our lives. But each one of us grown-ups here, and I'm looking at a few of you, we used to be kids, right? And I'm sure many of us have fond memories of our childhoods. The birthday parties, the sleepovers, the video games. But we all know growing up isn't all unicorns and rainbows. In fact, I'm sure if we look back, we would find that we were dealing with quite a lot as kids. I would like to prove it to you. We're going to do a little exercise, so get your hands ready. I would like you to raise your hand if when you were a kid, your parents divorced. Keep your hands up. I would like you to raise your hand if when you were a kid, you experienced the death of a loved one, a parent, a teacher, someone close to you. Keep those hands up, please. I would like you to raise your hand if when you were a kid, you were bullied because of how you looked, how you talked, or how you dressed. I would like you to raise your hand if when you were a kid, you were ever called the N-word, the B-word, the C-word, or any other kind of word that you can be called as a kid. Look around you. We went through some stuff as kids. Everybody can put their hands down. Thank you. I won't ask anyone to put their hand up here, but I will put up mine. Were you abused as a kid and did no one ever talk about it? So why aren't we talking with the kids in our lives? I believe we're not talking with the kids in our lives because by doing so, we believe we're doing the right thing. If our childhoods were hard, theirs doesn't have to be, right? Let's give them better than we had, we tell ourselves, and so we try and shield and protect them. We try and keep them safe and secure. We try and try and try to keep certain conversations off limits and out of reach so our kids don't grow up too fast, which, by the way, there are euphemisms for this, right? Helicopter parenting, sheltering your children, or how does the saying go? What they don't know won't hurt them. And when our kids try and break through, Mom, where do babies come from? Grandma, why are they marching in the streets? Or this one actually happened to me. Dad, what's a gentleman's club? What do we say in return? Can we talk about this later? I'll tell you when you're older. You wouldn't understand. Can we change the subject? Grown-ups, we're getting it all wrong. We're not helping our kids when we're doing this. We're getting in the way. We're getting in the way because we're uncomfortable, we're unprepared, and we're unendingly afraid of just talking with our kids. Meanwhile, what are our kids going through? How about a pandemic? Mass shootings every other week. The pressures of social media, heartbreak, hormones, homeschool. Okay, I'm kidding on that last one, I promise. Anxiety, depression, loneliness, gender discrimination, climate change, and something I'm told by my teenagers, getting left on red. Anybody? I'd like to present a simple idea to you. An idea that may just change how you go about being a grown-up, a teacher, a parent, an auntie, an uncle, anyone with a kid in their life they want to encourage, lift up, and help grow up. Are you ready? Kids aren't too young, kids aren't too innocent, and kids aren't too naive. Kids are ready. Kids are ready to navigate the complex, the uncomfortable, and the unknown. Kids are ready to dive into the big stuff of life. I'm not talking about teenagers here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. They're ready to have the conversation. They're ready to talk with a grown-up in their life. I promise you, kids are ready. When I wrote that book for my kids, they were ready. You see, they were already navigating race on a daily basis. For my white kids, when I would show up to pick them up from school, and their friends would ask, "Who's that?" "That's your dad." Or for my black son and my black daughter, who will always face questions like, "Where are you? Where are you from? What are you? And can I touch your hair?" Which, by the way, don't do that. They were so ready that when I showed them my book, their eyes lit up, and their first response was, "Dad, you should make more." On what, I asked? A kid's book about ice cream was their first response. But I'll never forget the second response. Dad, you should make a kid's book about divorce. Why would I do that? Was my response. So that kids know how to get through it, was what they told me. I'm really proud to say that I did exactly what my kids told me to. Just a year after showing them my book, I launched a Kids Co., a company that strives to empower the next generation through diverse storytelling. A company that hopes to get grown-ups talking with the kids in their lives about some of the most important topics. After we launched, we were met with a kind of demand I never could have imagined. In fact, at the start of the summer of 2020, we ended up selling out of all of our books in a matter of days, and it's been an absolute wild ride ever since. As of today, we have published almost 100 books, launched 11 podcasts, and created tons of resources for kids on challenging and empowering and important topics. Topics like belonging, body image, systemic racism, addiction, identity, gender, disabilities, imagination, failure, and y'all, so many more. Books made for kids and their grown-ups. Books made to start a conversation. Now, I'm not saying that our books are some magical solution or the only way to have these conversations. What I am saying, and I'm pleading with you, promise me this morning that the kids in your lives are ready. And if you're thinking to yourself, I'll wait till they're older to talk with them about it, please don't, because by then they won't want to talk with you about it anymore. Trust me. The time is now to have these conversations. And you know, I hear this thing from grown-ups about our books more than anything else, is they say, Jelani, I wish I had these when I was a kid. You know what? I do too. But grown-ups, let's be honest, we're not kids anymore. But we have the opportunity to be the kinds of grown-ups we wish we had around when we were kids. Because our kids, they need us so very much. They're smart, they're curious, they're creative, and they're ready. It's our responsibility to step up, to do better than our parents did, to get comfortable talking with this generation about everything that makes us uncomfortable. Because if we don't, who will? So, my grown-ups out there, aunties, uncles, older siblings, teachers, counselors, therapists, neighbor down the street, coaches, grandmas, grandpas. Answer those questions. Dive into those topics. Talk with the kids in your lives. Why? Because kids are ready. Thank you.